You know, out in the industrial park, Valero kind of dominates. When we think of the industrial park, we think of Valero. But actually, there are 600 businesses out there. So how does this project affect those businesses? Well, tonight we have a gentleman that wants to talk about that. In fact, last year, when a train derailed right in front of his business and shut it down, they told him, get used to it. Well, this is Ed Ruszel, and he has a family business, the Ruszel Woodworks, and he would like to give you a perspective of what can happen to the other businesses and in the industrial park that will be affected by this project.
Thank you, folks. It's quite a pleasure to see you here. I'm honored to be able to give you a bit of my information from my perspective at the industrial park. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. It's basically a slideshow, so I'm going to sit here. I do have a laser pen, so I want to be able to highlight a couple things for you. We got a lot of stuff to cover here, and what I was hoping to cover for you is just to give you the lay of the land here so you kind of understand some of the hidden areas where rail comes into the industrial park, who some of the users are currently, what kind of traffic impacts we have, and some of the logistics issues, and also what Union Pacific's been doing as they describe as a maintenance project here in the park. So this is my facility right here, a World War II building. We own this little triangle of property right in here. The mainline tracks are right along here. Bayshore Road's coming up this way, and crosses underneath the interstate. And here's the off-ramp. And here's my facility. This is my building here. This is 4:30 one afternoon. People are ready to go home, and we have about a 20-unit or a 20-car train coming by. Every day they bring in about 15 to 20 boxcars a day of beer. So we have 15 or 20 cars going in, 15 or 20 cars going empty. You got to do something with the bottles, right? And then back here are some petroleum tank cars. Most likely they are for asphalt, being empties going in or coming out. Okay? So a small train like this, only about 15 or 20 cars, might block the traffic because it's going quite slow. It's shunting in and out often. It might block traffic for 10 or 15 minutes. This is what we see on a daily basis. So what we have here is a drawing that came from the 60s. This was what the Army left us. This is their inventory of the industrial park that we now reside in. My little property is right down in this area here. The blue lines are the mainline railroad tracks, and for the most part, these orange lines here, or yellow, that's the infrastructure that the Army left us with. And we're going to look at these again soon. So we could see it was a pretty sophisticated bunch of loops, a very large storage area to handle trains. This is where they handled and unloaded a bunch of bombs. And this area here is where Valero is right now. On this little spur here, that's where they load out their pet coke. There's a couple interesting things to note here, is that was these loops that we see in here that allowed the trains to circulate, and this little Y connector that allowed trains to move up here and then back into this upper park area. This is what I'm going to call the industrial way siding area. Thank you. So here again, just another train movement. Happens every day. We get used to it. It's kind of fun checking out the graffiti. And here's about a 15 or 12 car hopper cars. This is pet coke cars. They come in and out of the refinery daily. They typically take about 10 or 12 of these a day. And here's what the working tracks look like now. You'll notice that the loops have been removed. Valero's in this area over here. And other users in the park, the big users, are up here. This is Stone Road area. That's where the beer goes into. And then down in this area in here along Industrial, we have two users. One for steel up here. They bring in maybe half a dozen cars a week. And then industrial gases, I believe CO2 comes out, maybe a couple cars a day. This is Valero's product terminal here where they put in their, or they take out their propane. And this is the spur that goes up to their coke loading facility, and then in here is where their asphalt plant loads out some cars. And then the trackage goes down here and continues down to the bridge, which would be way down here. So here's the Park Road crossing. This is one of their engines. This is a local switch engine. It's only 4 axles, and it's moving these small local cars up and down the trackage. This is, again, it happens several times a day. This is in this area. Oh, I'm sorry. This is right here. And this is the Y area where it goes up to the pet coke and then up into the loading facilities for propane. The other thing I'd like to show you here is that everything comes up this one track. It moves through the yard of Valero, and then it pops back out here on the short little length of Bayshore Road. It goes through another gate, and then it comes up to their large storage areas here in the Upper Park. So again, another short delay here on Park Road. We've been told in the draft as far as traffic mitigation that because it's an industrial park, we're used to delays, so that this new delay for these crude oil trains will not be an additional impact. Okay. So this is where the cars are exiting Valero, moving up to the northern end of the industrial park. So here's, again, a small train. We got to bring our beer in every day, or maybe those are the empties going out. And this is kind of the far end of the park. This is along Stone Road. What we have here is about a dozen hopper cars. They're probably for pet coke. They're probably owned by Valero, but nobody says. Sometimes they're owned by the railroad. Sometimes they're owned by the customer. Sometimes they're owned by a leasing company. And behind it is the warehouse, and so there's another row of tracks we don't see, and that's where they distribute the beer from. So these cars are just sitting on the siding because we have a parking problem. The rails have a parking problem, and so they put cars where they can. Now we're moved back down to the park. This is right parallel to industrial. This is what I'll call the industrial, or the Oregon Street crossing area. The UP owns 3 sets of tracks in here. They're approximately 3,000 feet long, 2,500, 3,000 feet long. A unit train is going to be 4,000 feet long. 4,000 feet is the length of Main Street here in town, or First Street. Thank you. Okay, this is the far end of the industrial park. This is what they call Goodyear Road area. It's by the compost yard along 680, if you know it. This is the only area where they have a major sidings that can accommodate unit train size cars. And next, please. And a unit train is a car or a train made up of all the same product or commodities. In this case, it's automobiles, and this siding here is occupied almost all week long by trains coming and going into the Amports facility. Amports currently is the biggest user of rail into the industrial park, and they have no intention of letting somebody else's crude cars interfere with their rail traffic. So this is a unit train, so typically they're going to be 50, 70, 100 cars long. Now this is on Industrial Way. We have some local media out here taking a look at what's going on out here. This is from last September. You can notice down here a very large section of tracks being ready to be pushed out into the, to replace existing trackage. Here again is a view of hopper cars, and in the background, this is the major siding area that the railroad has in the industrial park, in this north end of the industrial park. You can see the large tracks that they're getting ready to put in here. There's about 5 or 6 long tracks here, about 3,000 feet long, thank you. And you notice how close the public can get. The cars would be right here. That's okay. And you could walk right up, you could walk right between those trains. And then, of course, down here is the lower port area of the park. So you can see the silos in the background, the construction crews there, and the railroads have improved the tracks for about another 2,000 feet to the right. So what we're seeing here is that same shot, but in this case, the purple is where all the construction has gone on, and we'll see a little bit more of that. So you'll notice they didn't put any new construction up here where they send the beer, but they did improve this crossing where there hasn't been traffic in decades. Okay? They haven't done any work in Valero yet because that's on private property. That'll be Valero. So now we're starting to see heavy construction. This is last summer, a bunch of long rail coming in. They say they replaced like 5 minutes of rail. Thank you. Bunch of construction on industrial. We could just keep rolling through here. This is along Industrial Way. This is along Industrial Way. They're going to complete a whole bunch more traffic or connections in here. We got to watch for that because this is where the crude by rail projects go. And this area here is as close to the houses as on Valero's property. More construction. Here's some more tracks going to go in on Oregon Street. Thank you. Here's the Oregon Street tracks going in place. They're getting ready. Keep it rolling. We don't have much time. Thanks, Kat. Here's my property. So main line here, up above. Here's the spur that will take the unit trains down into the industrial park. They'll go all the way to the bridge before they could back them up across this trackage past my property and into the industrial, or into Valero. Here's the tracks they're putting in. Keep rolling, Kat. This is class 1 stuff. Keep going. I think they call it like 138, 140-pound rail. This is as good as it gets. No complaints with them. And thank you very much. I would just like to say that what we're seeing here is a great improvement in the structure of the rails, but no increase in the security or the circulation here. So everything will still have to come up and down this one same corridor. And if you could maybe go to the very last one that shows what Valero's doing. Little Petcoke spill. This is there's my brand new driveway they put in for me. This is right at my driveway. This was a minor Petcoke spill. It wasn't a big pile, but it dragged all down the tracks all the way to the silos. And this one was significant enough that somebody came and washed it down with water. So here, this is coal getting loaded out. Those are unit trains of coal going into Richmond. And here's what Valero tells us all they're doing. This is where they're saying their impact is, and a little bit of impact here on Park Road. And I thank you very much.